moi sur celui-là, si je suis...
Ok, c'est bon? Oui.
I don't think is this working? I don't think so.
I think I can hear you. Maybe a bit.
Hello? Oh yeah.
On peut lancer le PDF? So the following 3 talks will be in English. Thank you very much for joining us again. I'm Émilie Loriola, and for this first talk in English of the day, I'm happy to have with me photographer, I'm going to pronounce the name in the worst way possible, Rehab Eldalil, on her, close enough, on her long-term project and new publication, The Longing of the Stranger Whose Past Has Been Broken, a beautiful new book published by Photo Évidence, Trop bas des prémices méditerranéennes, Albert Camus. So including photographs, diary entries in both Arabic and English, embroidery, poetry, and a guide of native plants and herbs. It's a multimedia work that immerses the viewer into the worlds of the Bedouin community and was starting in 2009 in South Sinai in Egypt. As a way to reconcile with your own past heritage and identity, while also looking for connection and a sense of belonging. So it's a work that's been done in close collaboration with the Bedouin community of the Jebelaya tribe. Rehab has been documenting the community, their tradition, words, and history, and building this body of work for, I don't know for how long, for the book.
More than 10 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so can you first tell me more about the genesis of the work, how and when the project started?
Sure. So this project started out a bit more than 10 years ago. And it started first as a way for me to reconnect to my Bedouin ancestry. My last name, Eldalil, is translated to the word guide. So I've always been very curious about what my last name, like why do we have this last name? And naturally, as a kid, I was very connected to Sinai because my father was a war veteran. He participated in the war to retrieve the land from the Israeli occupation. So it really taught us a lot about the importance of the land and the native community, but never really opened up about our family history. But because of that, I built a lot of close relationships with the community. And just one day I was sitting down with one of the tribe elders, and he was very curious about my last name. And when I explained to him, like, I'm not sure, he actually told me that Eldalil family have left St. Catherine's in south of Sinai and went to another city. And that city is where my father was born. So it sort of gave me a lot of answers, but questions like why am I so drawn to Sinai, but also a lot of questions about my ancestry and what it means to be Bedouin. Something that I have missed out on. As a diaspora, and also not even being brought up as a Bedouin in an urban city. So a lot of questions to my dad, who opened up more and shared our Bedouin and Palestinian ancestry. And then the project came in order for me to learn more about my Bedouin ancestry. And by time, the project became more about the idea of belonging and the connection with the land, and how when we are removed from the land, whether by choice or by force, we lose the sense of belonging, and how we can learn from the native communities who still remain on their lands this reconnection, this strong sense of belonging to a land and understanding ourselves and our identity by coexisting with the land, basically. And that's what the project is all about. It's our human experience to find where we belong, basically.
And so it's a long-term project. Can you just walk me as briefly as possible to the steps, like how did you start working? Because the Bedouin community really plays a part in the work, like all the embroideries, the poetry, the plants. That's an exchange, like an ongoing conversation that you had with members of the tribes. can you just explain me how that's set up? I guess slowly, not like directly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, I've really struggled to use my voice as the sole voice for the narrative because I don't consider myself as a Bedouin. So if I'm gonna speak on behalf of the native community, it felt a bit wrong to only have my voice in the narrative as the photographer. So I wanted to collaborate with the community on a visual level because they have already been part of the creative process for so many years. So by 2018, we started together to explore how can we add the community's voice visually into the project. And my voice is seen in photography, but the community also has rich visual mediums that they could use. The Bedouin women use embroidery as a way to self-express. So I started to take photographs of the women, put them on, like print them on fabric, and then ask the women to embroider on them. So that way they have this full control over what to show and what to hide. They have control over their own representation in the project. And the men wanted to take part, and they are beautiful, poets. They write poetry, to self-express if they're in love, if they're angry from the government and the stereotypes around being Bedouin. And so I started to collect handwritten poetry by the men and tried to also depict it in visuals. So creating this visual conversation or visual dance with the community. And for the tribe elders, the answer for them whenever I ask them what it means to belong is the plants, the land. So they started to forage plants and write in their own handwriting its medicinal use. And that created this beautiful multimedia or mixed media conversation with the community.
Yeah, it's also interesting because I mean you're a documentary photographer. I don't know if for this project the term is actually that accurate, but I was wondering if for you, like giving like a voice to this community was also a way to avoid, like the often like violent practices of the representation of in documentary photography that can be generally quite, yeah, violent. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, throughout the production of my project, I was doing my MA, and my MA focuses on ethics and representation, visual storytelling. So I was very aware of the past narratives of the community and also, I mean, of my communities in general. As a North African and a Muslim woman, I understand very well how past narratives have really affected how we are seen. And the romanticized gaze, the colonial gaze that has really impacted how a lot of communities are seen, especially the native communities around the world. And so it was very important for me to make sure that I try to break this, because us photographers, sometimes we subconsciously get inspired by archives and past narratives,
Of course.
without really realizing the impacts of these images.
Okay, thank you. So were there any issues also in the process, or?
I mean, there's always issues. I mean, one of the issues was how to protect the identity of some of the community members who didn't want to be seen.
Yeah.
But we tried to fix it together, collaboratively, sharing the project together as a community project, whether by using different elements to hide faces or using embroidery for the women to hide their face if they want. But what's beautiful is that when one of the agreements was to hide the identity of one of the women's faces using embroidery, she actually returned back the fabric highlighting her face, because she told me, like, she realized it's not about hiding identity as much as having power over her image. So when she got that fabric and she had this, freedom to do whatever that she wants with her own image, that gave her this empowerment,
Okay. I wanted to know about the book. So it must have been a bit complex to edit, given that there are so many different mediums involved. And I just wanted to know how you worked on the editing and the construction of like the book narrative.
Sure. So I wanted to explain the context of the project, because it's really important for the audience to understand that, the struggles and the history of the Bedouin community. But I also wanted it to be more of a reflective space. And so the book is sort of divided between visuals and a lot of diaries and also an essay. So the essay talks about the history of the community, and the diaries talk about the, different traditions and the different conversations that I have had with the community, and also between myself. Like how throughout this, process, I've also been able to discover more about my own Bedouin ancestry. But it was very difficult to try to put all of these mediums into a book, And one of the things that we did with the photo editor, Tanya Habjouka, and the amazing designer, book designer, Bayan Dahdah, a Palestinian designer, is that we printed the embroidery back and front so that you would feel as if it's the actual embroidered pieces, and in textured paper so that you would feel as if it's the actual fabric. The plants were printed on translucent paper as a way for you to, to try to feel as if it's the actual plants. And also, when you flip through it and you put that page the page afterwards, it's as if you're planting the plants onto the land. So as if you're sort of honoring the rituals of the Bedouin community.
Okay, thank you. Is there like, so that's the book that we have here. Is there like a photograph that has a special signification for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this one here, it's an embroidered photograph. And as you could see, it's back and front, and you could flip and sort of connect in a multi-senses manner. And I love this one because it's of a mountain that's called Jabal al-Banat, or Mountain of the Girls. And one of the women, the younger women actually, Yasmin, she chose to embroider it. And I asked her why, and she told me this folklore story about the mountain and how it was named Mountain of the Girls. And no one knows if it's true or not, the story, but legend tells of three beautiful girls in a village who were known for having this long, luscious black hair. And they found out that they were going to get married without their knowledge. And so they got really frustrated. They went up a nearby mountain, braided their hair to each other, and then jumped. They leaped. And since that day, they named the mountain Mountain of the Girls to remind the community of women's rights to choose, which is super progressive. So many countries that call themselves progressive don't do that. I mean, the US is still struggling with this. So it's just a beautiful symbol of how we can all learn from Native communities,
Yes.
and how there's a lot of things that are overlooked, visually speaking, when we're, trying to connect or read, or create narratives about the land and also its keepers.
Okay, thank you very much. It's beautiful. I wanted to ask you before, like, we still have a little bit of time. What will you be working on next? Because that was like a project that took you more than 10 years. What's coming up for you?
Well, right now I'm working on a project on motherhood. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and since I got pregnant with her, I started to write a lot of diaries and work visually to understand the notion of motherhood. But because I love collaborations, I'm collaborating with her. She's an amazing artist. But I'm also collaborating with other mothers, including adoptive mothers, and how maternal lineages can, and bonds can actually grow away from the biological, factor as
Yes.
well. So this is a project that I'm working on. I've also just launched a photo book collective with a very dear friend of mine and also photographer, Abdou Shanan. And our collective is called AKA Tawla. And it features published books, dummies, and zines by photographers from the Southwest Asia and North Africa region. We have a table at Polycopies. This book is available for sale there, but there's amazing books also featured there, including a zine that we just produced.
Okay.
And it features 9 photographers from Palestine,
Great.
2 of which are currently reporting in Gaza.
Yes, thank you very much. So please go by Polycopy to see her beautiful book. Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.